Greetings, family. Let's have a conversation about single mothers. Very challenging conversation to have, and I wanted to have this conversation today because I saw this meme floating around social media, and it really brought a lot of discussion, and it's been a topic I've talked about for years, and I'll say over the 25 years that I've been teaching financial education and working with individuals, I've probably worked with well over 1,000 single mothers individually. And it's a very sensitive topic to me because I know it's one demographic that goes overlooked and underserved. And today I wanted to really talk about it because, quite frankly, as we look and see in this meme here, that it's could be someone real, maybe someone made up the numbers, I don't know, but the numbers don't look too far off base in terms of what a child costs. Now, I've seen many cases where it's a whole lot more than this. I've seen many cases where it's a whole lot less. It all depends on the household, the income level, and whatnot. But I think it's a conversation we have to have because what happens is that over 1,000 folks and single mothers that I've worked with, there's a trend, right? And let's talk about specifically where the father is not engaged because, quite frankly, in many cases, the father is engaged. Spiritually, mentally, financially, it's engaged where the mother, it might be technically a single-parent household, but the father is engaged physically, spiritually, mentally, financially. So we're not talking about those cases. I'm talking about the cases in this particular video where the father is not engaged. And in those instances, we see high levels of deficit spending where there's way more, too much month at the end of their money, where expenses are far outweighing the revenue coming to the household. We're seeing many instances where and again, this is well beyond the conversations that I've personally had where we've cut out getting the hair done, getting the nails done, cut all that out. We've cut out the shopping. We've cut out going out with friends and fun and any entertainment. It's crazy, the lifestyle that I've personally seen. We've had to go into what type of food shopping are you having and how do we use the food stamps most effectively. And all these types of conversations we're having when the mother's just trying to make ends meet. They're just trying to make ends meet. They're just trying to figure out what they can do to make sure they can keep food on the table for that child. And then there's a point in time where I probably have introduced it earlier on, is the father engaged? Because I have to ask that question to see exactly what other type of financial support is going to the household. But then I start to say things like, hey, maybe we ought to think about, because I know it's a sensitive topic. It's a very sensitive topic. I want to talk about this for a second. Because I start to say maybe we ought to start thinking about having more support from the child or from the father. Maybe we got to get the father more involved, financially at least, okay? And how do we go about doing that? And then there's an array of responses that I get over 1,000 woman sample size. I get these array of responses. Let's see if you can, if this either sounds familiar to you or you know someone who will give these type of responses. The first response I get when I'm trying to get the woman to solicit additional support from the father, the first response I get is that he's cray-cray response, or he's crazy, or I have a fear of safety for my family, right? He has a temper, he has a tantrum. And in many cases I do work with a lot of individuals who are either returning citizens or they're gang members who, might have had some criminal history in the past and whatnot. So that type of population, that's not uncommon, where there's a level of uncontrolled violence in the individual. And that's a legitimate claim, a legitimate concern. And if that sounds like you definitely ought to solicit support. We have support groups that you can email, we can connect you with. So please, if that sounds like you or someone you know, please have them reach out to us. The second response I get when I try to get the mother to solicit support from the father is the ruffled, feathered response, where I don't want to ruffle any feathers, and it's going to be an awkward conversation, and things are going fine. I put that in air quotes because, again, they're not fine. The budget's not adding up. Numbers are not adding up. They're not fine. But they don't want to ruffle any feathers, okay? And I get that a lot, and it just irks me. And then the third response I get is, my baby needs a daddy. And so this is heartbreaking to me because I see it as a way for the father to get actually more involved financially to support their child. I would think that they would want to, but the woman sees it as if I try to solicit support from the father, then the father will push back and no longer want to be in the life of the child. So that's a concern that I hear a lot of women say. The fourth response I get is they don't want to put additional stress or pressure on the child. So they view the court process and the court proceedings and trying to hold accountability for the father as a way in which the child will have to go through undue stress. And there'll be a lot of tension, which there, in many cases there are. There's a lot of tension, a lot of stress, a lot of awkward conversations, back and forth negotiating over property and assets and valuation and whatnot. So all these things can be stressful on the couple, but they don't necessarily have to be stressful on the child. Because the friends of the court, they're not new to this. So there are ways where you can shield your child from that conversation. Then the last way I get, and this is probably in this demographic the most common response I get, and this is the Miss Independent response. I got it. And there's no doubt they're strong. There's no doubt that they have intestinal fortitude and they're brave and they're strong, right? I get it. But they take on a perspective like, I'm strong enough where I don't need support from that child. And that doesn't sit right with me, because my thing, and then listen, in those cases, which I've had many cases as well, where the woman does have it. She is making more than enough money to financially support the child by herself. But my argument in response to that is, even if that is the case, every additional dollar that goes toward the support of that child, even if it does nothing but go into a 529 plan and sit and collect interest for the next 17, 18 years, that child is owed that money. That child is owed that support. So there's no such thing as I got it, where there's not additional support that could help the child. And to me, there's no such thing as an awkward conversation or stress or ego or pride that is worth as much as the support that the child is owed. The child did not ask to come here, but he or she is here. So we ought to support that child. And so I just want the single mothers to know that we support you. You have support from us. Text us, email us. We have tons of resources that we can send to you, that we can refer you to. Main Street is Here was created for you. So with that, let's give some additional tips for single mothers. So here are some additional financial tips for single parents, lightning round. Check them out. Tip number 1, create a budget. Tip number 2, prioritize all of your expenses. Tip number 3, save for emergencies. See if you can put together 6 to 9 months of living expenses. Tip number 4, seek financial assistance. Email us and let's see if we can connect you with some additional grants and resources in your local area. Tip number 5, one of the biggest breakers to your budget is debt. So reduce your debt as fast as possible, as much as possible. Email us and let us connect you with some financial coaches that can help you negotiate those debts. At least get the interest rates down and maybe get some debt forgiven. Tip number 6, make sure you put aside some time and money to plan for your own retirement. Tip number 7, invest as wisely as possible, even outside of retirement. Tip number 8, seek as much educational resources as possible. Main Street is one of those resources. Let us refer you to different books you can read, websites you can use. We give tons of resources and free classes all the time. Investment 101 is one of those classes. Sign up for it next time we give it. Tip number 9, explore cost-effective childcare options. Tip number 10, boost your income. Explore any way possible you can earn additional revenue for that household. Tip number 11, are you taking care of every tax benefit you're eligible for? Tip number 12, make sure you shop as smartly as possible, be it at the clothing store or the grocery store. Tip number 13, do you have a strong support network? Email us. Let's connect with some different meetup groups for single parents in your area. Do you have a lot of friends that add value to your life and make sure they can give you confidence and build your mindset and uplift your spirit? Tip number 14, planning for college is important. Do it as fast as possible. Tip number 15, take care of yourself. Self-care is critical when it comes to child care. We want to make sure that you're exercising regularly, you're eating right, you're getting the mental support you need, you're asking for support when you need it. All these things and a whole lot more are a critical piece of self-care, which is detrimental when it comes to proper child care. Okay, you got to put your gas mask on yourself before you put it on the baby. So with that, if there's anything that we can do to support your journey, please feel free to text us, email us. We want to support you. Shout out to all the fathers that are out there doing such a phenomenal job helping to raise these children and making sure they're giving the support they need. For all the fathers that are not doing their part, please, please, please text us, email us as well. Let us help you to make you more accountable for the life of that child. If we know it's hard for you all to figure out ways to get involved. If we can talk to you, if we can intervene and try to put these things together and mediate support for that family, again, that child is the number one thing we're trying to think of. And it's so critical, so important that you are supported. We want mothers and fathers alike to know that Main Street is supporting them and loving them and caring for them. And we're here to do whatever we can to do possible. So with that, hope to hear from you soon. Peace.